Of course, Godzilla X Kong is a movie that came out obviously recently, where I may or may not have made a video trashing it before it came out. Thank you guys for telling me. I will not apologize, right? But of course, the main problems are that I didn't like how Kong was treated in Godzilla vs. Kong. Of course, we got the poster right there. Obviously, I watched it. I was very hyped about the movie. I wasn't as hyped when Godzilla got bodied 3 different times. But anyways, the plot, obviously, Kong, Hollow Earth, trying to find his other species, where he ends up fighting Zuko, aka Baby Kong. And then, obviously, with finding Zuko, he ends up finding and fighting Scar King. Obviously, person is later revealed to be someone that declared war with the Great Apes against Godzilla. Except Godzilla, for some reason, somehow bodied them like 1v200 or whatever, right? But we'll talk about that later. Banishes them to Hollow Earth, where Scar King somehow manages to capture Shimu, aka the ancient kaiju, or at least people say the first titan that caused the Ice Age. I don't know how he captured Shimu, but I guess. I mean, he does have a crystal that controls her, so maybe he found that first and then went to go find Shimu. Probably the most accurate, thing. But Scar King and Shimu obviously beat up Kong the first time, which I do not blame them. I didn't say I didn't want Kong to get bodied, but like, it's technically jumping. It was 2v1. Obviously, Kong was not going to be the one to defeat them the first attempt, right? But he has to end up enlisting Godzilla in the fight. Well, obviously, Godzilla for some reason still hates Kong. I don't know. I thought they squashed the beef in this movie, right? But I guess not. I guess they still hate each other. They don't even hate each other. Godzilla hates Kong. I don't even know why. Well, okay, maybe now we know why, because the Great Apes declared war on Godzilla, and Godzilla's probably racist. He probably doesn't like Great Apes anymore. But there's a whole other side plot with the Emu tribe. I think that's what it's called. My bad. But it's the natives of Skull Island, right? Thought to be extinct after the events of Kong Skull Island. But they're found in Hollow Earth, where they need, obviously, the girl from this movie to be able to reawaken Mothra to help the fight. All she does is talk to Godzilla, because it's canonical that they speak telepathically to each other, because they have like a thing going on. I don't know how that works, but it just does. You don't question it, right? You gotta respect Godzilla, right? But they end up fighting. They end up killing Scar King in the most brutal way possible, and by that I mean they freeze him, obviously, because Shimu was released. Of course, when you're released and you have free will again, who are you gonna choose? The person that was abusing you the entire time, or like these people coming to save you? Very easy choice. They freeze Scar King, and Kong once again defeats the main villain, right? Shatters him all over the floor. Very nasty, gruesome scene, right? Not to mention, there's a lot of dismembers. There's a lot of splitting in half scenes, obviously, which is a weird thing. And people are like, oh, it might be a director's hidden fetish. Remember, like, monsters getting torn in half? Probably not. But, yeah, in my accounts, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 different scenes of 4 different monsters getting split into multiple pieces. We'll talk about each one of those later, obviously, because it's the good, the bad, and the ugly, and that's definitely part of the ugly, right? But they live happily ever after. Godzilla stays on top without Mothra, because I guess they're going through a breakup. I don't know. And in the bottom, Hollow Earth, obviously, Kong, Shimu, and Zuko, and the rest of the Great Apes continue to roam. It's a good movie, to be honest. Obviously, we're going to go with the good first. The good is Kong actually is competitive in his fights, unlike the last time he was not competitive. In the trailer, it shows, this one, it shows Kong slapping Godzilla. I was like, oh yeah, let's go. Kong's actually going to be able to do something. Nope, they show another scene where Godzilla slip counters Kong, knocks him down, like, okay, I guess. And he loses 0-3 against Godzilla the first time. Or Wombat, for some reason, I don't know. And Godzilla again. Whatever, right? But this time he's a lot more competitive. He beats all the other tiny kaijus, which is a lot better than recently, because like I said, he almost lost to a Wombat, but whatever, right? But they do have to technically nerf him in this movie, because they took away his axe. He still has it. He just doesn't have access to it multiple times in the movie. Why? Because when you have Godzilla as your teammate, and Godzilla is basically the one that powers up the axe to make it full power. Not only that, Godzilla also got an upgrade. Makes sense why they didn't have him keep the axe. But don't worry, it's not destroyed. He keeps it, right? Of course, he gets the mechanical upgrade, which, like I said before, when he hits Godzilla, it barely moves him. It barely staggers him. No wobble bobble treat or nothing. He good. He's able to fight back, right? Now he can actually fight. He can actually knock Godzilla down. He did in the encounter that they had back in Egypt, right? And it's definitely interesting. It's definitely good. Now Kong will never get bodied like that again, hopefully. Of course, the main villain, Scar King, I like him. I like his design. I like his weapon of choice, be that being a whip. Obviously, he has the crystal that controls Shimu at the end of it. I guess it goes towards his cockiness. He's like, yeah, it's part of my weapon. I probably should have it like on my hip or something, on my belt, utility belt or something. But no, I don't think I'm ever going to lose. I'm going to put it on my whip. Right? I like the way he attacks. He's a defensive fighter. He's a counter puncher. You know, I said Godzilla slipped counter to Kong. Scar King dodges your attacks and then whips you, which is super cool. The way he fights, oh man, I like it. I like it a lot. Of course, he does get access to the axe. Does he ever use it? No. But then again, it's kind of useless against Shimu. Not really. Because you know how Shimu also has like a blast? It doesn't power up the axe. It just freezes him over, right? And obviously, that's the reason why Kong gets the mechanical enhancements. His arm gets frostbite, right? His arm gets frostbite. Very nasty scene. But of course, the humans also get some good scenes too. Obviously, you got this guy, Trapper. I like him. He's the veterinarian of kaijus for some reason. I don't get it. What other kaijus need like veterinary service? Do people have kaijus as pets? I mean, Doug is like, I would assume like 50 feet tall. No, he's not 50 feet tall. I think he's like 20 feet tall, somewhere around there. He could definitely be kept as a pet. Weirdly enough, Doug actually does make a reappearance in the movie, so I guess he's like that type of character. A little goofy thing there just for comedic relief, and he works. But not only that, you know what I said about Kong? I forgot one important thing. In the beginning, it shows Kong being able to actually put up traps. That's right, he makes traps, and he uses it multiple times in the movie. It wasn't just like a one-off thing. He uses it multiple times, which is really cool. I like that. I like how they added that little thing for Kong. Obviously, he doesn't use it against the big bads because he doesn't get any time to basically prepare. But of course, you also got Bernie, aka the fat guy from the last movie. Obviously, this one. He's back. He's somewhat funny. Not all the jokes hit, but hey, whatever, right? Who cares? Godzilla. Now we're getting to the somewhat bad part. Oh, those are the good parts. Good movie. Has some good scenes. Funny. Trapper, very good person. Very nice. Now we're going to the bad. Godzilla. If you came specifically for Godzilla, you probably know. You probably left a little disappointed. Godzilla barely appears in the movie. Like at all. He appears. He fights two kaijus. He fights the little crab octopus thing. Whatever, I guess. And then not only that, he fights a little sea serpent thing that is said to be in Antarctica, I think it is, where he constantly absorbs the sun's radiation where it's at its strongest, right? And you would think this monster that absorbs all this radiation would somehow be able to match up to Godzilla. Nope, because it's destroyed in like 2 seconds. Weirdly enough, Kong also fights a sea serpent in the movie, and he does the same thing. He dismembers the sea serpent. This is what I mean by a lot of dismemberment. Godzilla barely appears in the movie. It's all right. You know, when people are making fun of Godzilla for running, they're like, oh, this is the goofy stuff. We're like, there's a lot more goofy stuff in the movie where Kong literally, Godzilla jumps off a cliff and dolphin dives into the water. All right, whatever. And not only that, there's an anti-gravity fight scene, which is not the bad part. I actually liked it. Everyone's obviously understandably confused, right? They never fought in anti-gravity. Nope, Godzilla's out here fighting like he'd been doing this all day. So like, all right, whatever. That's not a bad part, just a weird part. And weirdly enough, Godzilla kind of appears in the last fight scene, but after a while, Shimu like throws him away, and he just doesn't appear until like the end. Why? I don't know. I don't know. He appears. Obviously, the fight scene is more like Scar King versus Kong, while Shimu and Godzilla attempt to stop the other one from getting into the fight. Kind of like actual street fights. But the other bad part is Scar King. I like Scar King design. I like his fight style. I just don't like how he wasn't too threatening. I was right when I said he wasn't going to be too threatening. Why? Because he was a defensive fighter. Like I said, he's a counter attacker, right? He slips your attack and then he dodges, right? No, he dodges your attack and then he hits you, obviously, with his whip. The difference is whenever he goes purely offensive, there to actually win the fight, he loses. He lost against Kong when he actually attempted to go for game, to win, right? Weirdly enough, he and the other monkeys know how to do chokeholds. Kong doesn't, I guess. I don't know. I feel like they should have taught Kong like jujitsu or something. I'm just saying. But he attempts to beat Kong, but Kong throws him off of him. And whenever they get in a really one-on-one fight where, there is no really slip counter that he could do, he gets bodied. He gets thrown like a ragdoll the second Shimu is taken out of, out of his control, right? But that also makes sense because Godzilla also broke his whip, right? Because when Scar King decided to actively fight Godzilla for the first time, it doesn't work. He throws his whip, Godzilla catches it with his teeth, and he throws him away like an empty water bottle, right? But I don't know. Scar King was just there. I like this fight scenes, but he never was really there to win. Like, you knew he had no chance. I was like, all right, whatever, right? But not only that, the other bad part is that there's not a lot of kaiju versus kaiju scenes. Weirdly enough, it's only had 2, obviously, or 3 basically. I get it, and there was mostly a lot of human scenes. Same thing with this one. The difference is, it didn't seem as epic to me. I don't know. It just didn't seem as grand as Godzilla vs. Kong. Why? Because this intro scene is one of the best intro to a movie I've ever seen. And you may be saying, oh, maybe because you don't watch a lot of movies. You're probably right, but most of the time, they don't put a lot of effort into their intros, or at least that much anyways. This one is super good. If you haven't seen it, which weirdly enough, maybe you skipped it, maybe you watched it on streaming and you skipped it, watch it. Watch the intro. This thing gets you so hyped for the movie. This one, not so much. Weirdly enough, I did forget one good thing, so we're going to... One of the other good things of the movie is that they just kind of just accept the fact that kaijus are just a thing. They're just like, all right, there's a kaiju over there. All right, thanks for telling us. What are you going to do about it? Nothing. But that's about it. The other bad part is how they like to say Godzilla fights the fights that they can't fight. There's more of a nitpick, but we'll just go with bad. And it makes sense. Most of the time they can't fight kaijus like Kong and Godzilla. Weirdly enough, they can probably fight Kong because he bleeds like all the time. But most of those kaijus that you look at, besides the sea serpent one, looks like something the military can take on by themselves. But I guess they don't because it might anger Godzilla. But not only that, they also created Mechagodzilla. Why couldn't they just create another mecha? Which, of course, most people are saying is going to happen later on in the movie or later on in the franchise, where Jaguar might make its grand appearance. Obviously being controlled by many people think Trapper. I'd love to see that. But of course, a lot of times it's just like, oh, we can't fight it. You can't make like a mini Mechagodzilla or something. I get it. Mechagodzilla got possessed or whatever. Maybe don't use haunted kaiju bones. But anyways, the ugly, Mothra looks ugly. That's about it. Mothra's barely in the movie, by the way. Mothra just here, webs up like Spider-Man, like just a few Kongs, kind of just throws out the trash, basically. And then she just disappears. She doesn't go with Godzilla because I guess they're going through a divorce. Makes sense. She's been dead all this time and she's like, okay, I guess you're just going to leave. Weirdly enough, it looks like Kong and Shimu might have a thing together. She gets pet like a dog, but they're supposed to be like alpha kaijus, like the best of the best. Is this ethical? Because I would get the other ones because they're like not as intelligent, I guess. But these alpha kaiju seem like they're intelligent enough, especially because they're all like, Scar King has a bunch of intimacy, how do I say this? Intimacy people that he owns. People he owns for intimacy, if you get what I mean. And they say they blame him because he's intelligent enough to know that it's wrong. And everyone else knows that it's wrong, which means that he should be held accountable. Weirdly enough, I don't think a court's really going to be hearing that out. A, because it's a kaiju, and B, because he's dead. So whatever, right? So is Kong petting Shimu like a dog weird? Do they have a thing going on? I mean, Kong now has more of a species, but we've seen Godzilla not go for his own species. But then again, his species is extinct, Weirdly enough, when I said that the Kongs fought Godzilla and he 1v like 20 of them and that was weird, what I meant was there's a comic book that ties in to the Godzilla, the MonsterVerse franchise, where there's a Kong, right? And his name is the Rival, that bodied Godzilla, like somewhat pre-2014 Godzilla. Obviously, it wasn't Godzilla King of the Monsters where he got bodied, but no, a Rival Kong bodied Godzilla. Where are those Kongs? Is he going to be the next big bad in Hollow Earth? But then again, it'd be weird to have two Kongs as main villains, but you know, I really want to see another Kong that can stand up to Godzilla. So the ugly is all the dismemberment scenes, nasty, all the gore, whatever. The good thing, Doug. But if Kong and Shimu were to get together, is that weird? I think it's weird. That's why I put in the ugly section. I mean, Godzilla and Mothra are a thing. Like literally, he's literally the king of the monsters and the queen of the monsters. And I think Mothra only got the queen of the monsters not because of her actual strength and versatility, but more because she's banging Godzilla. So I guess it's still weird. That's the ugly. Not a lot of ugly. I mean, sometimes it looks ugly. Like once the kaijus are on top and you see the little humans, you think, man, those don't look really much like humans, right? But whatever. The ugly is interracial couples. That's what it is. I hate interracial couples. Kong and Shimu, not a thing. Godzilla and Mothra, not a thing. Shouldn't happen. Immoral, right? But anyways, that's the end of the movie review. I liked it. Did it live up to expectations? No. Did it live up to the amount of hate I was talking about it? No. Do I recommend it? I like Kong. I really do. But this might be a movie that you might want to skip out on, especially wait for streaming. I don't want to say it's not worth it, but there's definitely a lot in the movie where you'd be like, not for me. Right, but anyways. I hope you enjoyed this video. The next one is, I don't even know what. I was going to make a Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 0 review. I gave up halfway through. So I guess that's it. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you in the next one.